Hello, everyone. Today we are diving into Nectar, a novel published in 1954 that unfolds against the dynamic backdrop of India's intense urban development. It's an opening video of a series of videos I'm going to present. In this, I'll be focusing on the socio-cultural background of Kamala Markandia, the novelist, and her life literary saga, and mostly I'll be focusing on the novel Nectar and its uh, important points related to the introduction. Let's join. Let's explore the social cultural background of the writer Kamala Markandia. She was born in 1924. It was time that India went through a serious political turmoil, um, mainly because of the British rule. There was a strong demand for self-determination in and among these natives in India. The leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, the Indian National Congress, were fighting for political freedom. There were tough times, actually, though with laws like Rowlatt Act. Most of you know what Rowlatt Act means. According to the imposed Rowlatt Act, the Britishers could arrest any Indian civilian without any lawsuit, any trial. There was another reason that jeered the demand for freedom in Indians. That was the Amritsar massacre. Uh, British armed soldiers had a mass murder of innocent civilians in Amritsar. These two incidents jeered the extreme need to fight against the Britishers and uh, request their freedom back. So, Gandhi's non-cooperation movement in 1920, the rise of local leaders showed kind of they wanted to show kind of change of the political strategy. They wanted to somehow or the other, they wanted to fight against and get the freedom back. So even though the British tried to stop them, their strength was not enough to overpower the demand of Indian natives. This movement played a big part in India's gaining independence in 1947. So this is the context Markandeya grew up in India. Who is Kamala Markandeya? She was born in 1924, as we discussed in the earlier video. She was born as Kamala Purnaya Taylor in Mysore, in the part of Mysore in India. Um, she possessed kind of unique perspective in her writing. Basically, it got created mainly because of the first-hand experience that she got when she used to live in India. Um, Specifically, that she grew up in the struggle for independence, and she started witnessing these particular struggles of the lovers of the country. And she witnessed the societal changes, not only the independence, but also the intense changes which were going on in the country related to urbanization, modernization. And she graduated from the University of Madras. After graduating, she embarked on a new chapter by settling in England in 1948. Eventually, she married an Englishman. This dual cultural background allowed Markandeya to explore the contemporary struggles of Indians caught between Eastern and Western. In many of her novels, we can see the encounter between Western and Eastern. And she mostly discussed about uh, how people become victimized in this particular encounter, how they become confused in this particular encounter. Mostly that this is the first-hand experience that she went on in her life. Um, and her novels, including the acclaimed Nectar, reflect a deep understanding of the complex social cultural landscape of India. So it's almost like good social study, sociological study as well. When you read Nectar, that you get a chance to go through a rich narrative. Rather than that, we go deep into the layers of society, politics, economy, interpersonal and intrapersonal layers. You can find she was very good enough in penetrating through these layers and taking up a very good social study for the sake of the reader. So it has many purposes. One is a narrative purpose, and there's another very important purpose that is a social study you get. Um, After that, we find that she was very good at capturing human stories. In many of her novels, we find her first-hand experience when she was moving in and around India in her own native country. She found different stories. She was good enough to weave them into a quilt, into a tapestry for us to for the others to read. So even in Nectar, we find that certain experience related to characters, interactions, their hardships, their victories, and related to their relationships, all are woven into one particular picture that the reader can enjoy uh, through one book. So it's almost like a fabric which presents a tapestry of a life experience. She has presented nearly 10 novels. Nectar becomes the first novel, as I said earlier. So throughout these different novels, we find she's good at, showcasing her first-hand experience as an Indian. This is about her literary saga. Her literary saga is rich with many wonderful narratives related to her own culture. Nectar in a Sieve is the initial novel, and she writes a last novel in 1982 that is Pleasure Way. When you look at these titles, you can see how she integrately weaves her experience into these novels. Right. The first novel is about Indian peasant woman's life. Second one is about in that she explores a gap between urban and rural life. And when it comes to Two Virgins, it's about gender. And many a handful of rice is about India, Indian agriculture. In Nectar also that she is really good at going through her experience related to these elements. Next, let's focus on the thematic themes Markanda discusses in her literary work. She encompasses a broad spectrum of themes, broad array of themes. Those themes delve into the fabric of Indian society, and she focuses on social change and transformation, and she focuses on the intimate struggles of ordinary individuals to cope up with this particular pace of life. Um, she further focuses on the tensions in conflict between urban rural dynamics. In her time, she obviously experiences how traditional agricultural societies change into industrial societies. When industrialization peaks, we know that urbanization goes hand in hand. So she experiences this, and she experiences how people struggle with this particular societal change and how they are trying to stand right at this particular, social change in this arena. There she talks about the cultural identity of people, how people struggle to find their identity. People are in a struggle to identify what value is the best value. They are at a clash between values, newly found values and older values. And further, that she sees the stark realities of economic disparities and the human resilience in this particular economic disparity. In this particular society, we find extreme hunger, poverty. Sometimes we find people die by the roads because of these particular bad economic conditions. And she scrutinizes why people die like this. where we went wrong, and she's trying to give solutions through her novels. She doesn't give the solution directly, but she suggests that these would be solutions for these particular disparities. And further, she talks about uh, evolving exploration of gender roles, highlighting changing societal norms through the lens of obsolete practices in Orthodox India. She critiques these particular gender disparities and gender politics of her India. The themes like human love, relationships, the concept of family, and the turbulent backdrop of cultural, political turmoil, including the struggle for independence, collectively form a rich tapestry of Markanda's literary exploration. She offers readers profound insights into the multifaceted challenges and experiences woven into a fabric of rapidly changing world. And further, she tries to delve into an individual, human individual, and how that individual would deal with this rapid changing world. In her novels, we identify common themes. First, we find societal change and transformation. Next, struggles of ordinary individuals. After that, we find conflict between urban and rural in the mix. Next, we get cultural identity and clash of values, economic disparities, human resilience, and survival amidst all these economic disparities. And she focuses on impact of modernization. In her time, we find that traditional uh, society turns out to be modern. So, what is the impact of that? She focuses more on exploration of gender roles, man, woman, how man would uh, make a role in this particular strongly patriarchal India. She delves into the obsolete practices in the Orthodox India. She lets the world feel, experience certain Orthodox practices and their effects. Amidst all that, she highlights as a kind of optimistic factor human love and relationships amidst this interregnum, amidst the transformation of the society in this interregnum. She highlights a positive factor as concept of family and cultural and political turmoil. As one of the most important factors, she highlights East-West encounter. In this particular global world, we can't stay as a monocultural society. So that in her novel, she suggests that there is kind of mix up, East-West encounter. But in certain traditional societies, we know people are reluctant to move away from the society from their own culture. She, in her novel, suggests that this is inevitable. This East-West encounter experience is inevitable, so that this becomes kind of a suggestion of the writer. Now it is time for us to focus on the novel Nectar and Sieve. From this slide onwards, that I'll be discussing about the novel's socio-economic political background, the relationships, and the psychologies of people that Markanda is attempting to present. Nectar and Sieve is published in 1954. This is kind of repeated information I provide you. And again, I try to remind you that this is post-independent India. There was intense urban development was going on in India. This story chronicles the life of Rukmani, uh, the protagonist of the story, a peasant woman, and her husband Nathan, a tenant farmer. It unfolds through a flashback of Rukmani, and she narrates her journey, depicting her growth as a daughter, mother, wife, and ultimately as a widow. Rukmani starts her journey as a child, and because of the circumstances, because of certain because of the economic downfall of the family, she has to agree to marry an older man, right, when she was 12. which highlights the child bride system in India. And he was a poor tenant farmer, as I said, and he started facing a lot of challenges, but still, we find that the found husband of Rukmani, as a surprise to me, of course, that I actually expected Rukmani, when Rukmani marries an older person, that she would again be pushed into fire. But to make me kind of happy, we find that Nathan becomes a good husband, kind of an empathetic husband, a very kind, understanding sort of a man. So even though that this couple was moving on in their lives, they moved through a lot of ups and downs because of the external interventions like industrialization, modernization, and specifically because of indomitable poverty, which many of the Indians were moving on. Despite hardships, the relationship between Nath and Rukmani radiates optimism. The family endures significant trials, including drought, joblessness, starvation, decentralization of their children, and death of their children. Some uh, discoveries that the husband is not really faithful. Amidst all this, we find that their relationship is moving on in a very, I mean, in a nice manner. The narrative discusses the plight of the youth and profound social transformations as well. Rukmani attempt to seek help from her son Murugan in the city ultimately result in disappointment. Now, in the novel, we find that their children move into different directions. Like first two children come to Sri Lanka, uh, one dies, two people die, two sons die, and Murugan, who moved into city, becomes one of the significant incidents in the novel. Ultimately, when Rukmani and Nathan lose their land, their ultimate decision was to go and meet Murugan. So that also ends up with a disappointment, right? Ultimately, we find that Nathan dies. After Nathan's death, Rukmani finds solace in love and solace of Nathan's love. That incident is very beautifully presented, and they're the most emotional place in the novel. How writer intensifies human love amidst all the changes and downfalls of the societies, right? So she returns to the village and she starts improvising another family, bringing an orphan, Puli, with her, and she tries to pick the remaining pieces of her life and tries to make a quilt. She restarts her life, suggesting the reader you can jump into the you can rather fall into the depth of the uh, depth, the ultimate depth of your life, but still you can rather weave your life back, take your life back. Therefore, I find that this is provides us a very good message. So, students, this is the last slide that I'm going to discuss today. So, in the coming lessons, I'm going to discuss about. I'm going to explore more about the settings of the novel. There are many settings. Like we find the story started with the flashback of Rukmani, and that is Nathan's village. Then she walks back to her own village. She goes to city. She comes back to Nathan's village. Likewise, we find a number of settings, and these settings are meaningfully done by the writer. And I'll be talking more about themes, characters, and techniques the novelist attempts to um, novelist presents in this novel. And finally, I would like to say that this novel is a masterwork. So I like this novel because this actually provides us a very good message. Whatever happens in life, ultimately, your resilience matters. Your way of looking at things matters, like optimism. So life has light by the end. So believe in that. Thank you very much.